be followed by Commissioner King. I think it's very important. We have students from the entire town of East Hartford, and I know that we're going to show outstanding behavior. And I'd like to welcome especially all these sixth graders and look forward to seeing you here next year. Thank you.
What's left over. Us in our pledge to reflect. I realize that you are very excited, and to ask you to quiet down very quickly, as you've just done, is really excellent. Thank you very much. It gives me a great deal of pleasure in introducing to you here at East Hartford Middle School the Honorable Susan Neat, Mayor of East Hartford.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the annual celebration of the birth of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It is proper and it is fitting that the third Monday of January is celebrated as a day of hope, a day of renewal, and a day of rededication to the ideals that Dr. King upheld. We must continue Dr. King's commitment towards a society that treats all men and all women, whatever their origin, whatever the color of their skin, with dignity and with respect. We must ensure that our community is a place where you, our children, can learn, live, and grow, and are free from the fear of violence and from the danger of drugs. We will continue to work together towards a society that extends great opportunities and awakens hope to build a better nation for all of us. We must commit ourselves to pass the King legacy onto you, because your ideals and attitudes will shape our society into the next century. We are indeed honored to have Martin Luther King III, a young man of significant achievement and even greater promise. I join with you in welcoming him, and I thank you.
I'd like to introduce our Superintendent of Schools, Sam J. Leon.
Commissioner King, on behalf of the East
East Hartford Board of Education and staff of the East Hartford Public Schools, it is indeed an honor and privilege to welcome you to our community and to our East Hartford Middle School. As we honor your father, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it is appropriate that we briefly talk about his legacy. Dr. King believed deeply in the dignity of each person that comes to fruition in the human community. He saw in the civil rights movement a microcosm of the beloved community that was his dream. Black and white, rich and poor, male and female, young and old coming together over human rights and human dignity. You, Martin Luther King III, have nurtured his dream by continuing his struggle for human rights among all people. We're extremely grateful and proud to have you address our students and members of our community this morning. We welcome you and thank you for accepting our invitation to join us and look forward to your presentation. Thank you very much.
All the middle school students here this morning, Martin Luther King III was here earlier and went in and out of several of the classrooms. And he had some very kind words to say to our students and also some words of encouragement. And I thank him for that, for him to find the time to visit all of our young people, because that's what's so important. And I also, as the principal of East Hartford Middle School, cordially welcome you and look forward to your address. It gives me a great deal of pleasure in introducing a group of young people from Silver Lane School who will present I Remember Martin Luther King Jr., an American Celebration of Freedom, presented by Silver Lane School, grade 5 and 6 students, under the direction of Mrs. Lorraine Arcari.
of love and worked for the freedom and dignity of his people.
The American people. Today, we remember the Reverend Martin Luther King, Jr.
Martin Luther King.
So that's what we did. Dad became Big Martin Luther.
And at the age of 4,
Little Mike became Martin Luther King Jr.
Now that's something to celebrate. Shout,
said he was studying to be a minister, but in the summer he unloaded trains and trucks at Railway Express.
He wanted to know firsthand
About the working conditions of Black and poor Americans.
Well, I can tell you, it was long hours, low pay, and back-breaking work.
Yes, sir.
Maybe he thought things were better in Boston where he was headed.
My name was Coretta Scott. I met Martin Luther King in Boston where he was finishing his doctorate in theology. I was a music student preparing for a concert career, and I was certain my future was to be a singer. He's got the whole world in his hands. 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 He's got the little bitty baby in his hands. He's got the little bitty baby in his hands. He's got the little bitty baby in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got you and me, brother, in his hands. He's got you and me, sister, in his hands. He's got you and me, brother, in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. Well, at the end of our first date, Martin asked me to marry him. He was unlike anyone I had ever known. And later, on June 18, 1953, I became Coretta Scott King. Soon, we will go to Martin's first congregation.
Here they come! Here they come!
Welcome, Dr. King. Welcome, Mrs. King. On behalf of all of us at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, we are so glad you came to be our pastor here in Montgomery, Alabama. New Reverend looks quite young. He's only 25. Think he'll stay? Stands up straight, has a good voice. But what's he gonna say? Gonna say?
Martin Luther King says people must learn to stop hating.
Montgomery, Alabama, Day 192, a bus boycott. Many have been arrested, Dr. King's home has been bombed. Still, the walk for justice goes on, and the buses are empty.
A sniper's bullet ended the life of Martin Luther King on April 4th, 1968.
But we do not remember him today because he is dead. We remember Martin Luther King because he and his dream are still alive.
And the word he spoke at the Lincoln Memorial, Washington, D.C., a part of every American dream.
This nation will live out the true meaning of its creation.
for those of us who at one point in our lives have been on the stage to talk, or whatever the case might be, we know how difficult it is. And I'd just like to really applaud the Silver Lane group for an outstanding performance. Introduce Commissioner King.
Thank you, Jim, and let me join with you in expressing a tremendous amount of pride in the kids from Silver Lane and all of you for your behavior this morning. And particularly, I want to also thank Paula Erickson, who helped put this together today and did a tremendous job. Great job, Paula. Also in the audience, there are some distinguished members of our community, and I'd like them to stand, please. From our town council, Deborah Gaudette and Mary Lee Hickey. From our Board of Education, President Jimmy Carter, and official delegations to foreign countries in an effort to promote peace. As a member of the Board of Directors of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change, Mr. King toured the poverty and drought-stricken areas of African nations of Mozambique, Somalia, Zimbabwe, and Ethiopia in October and December of 1984. As a result of this fact-finding group, the King Center joined other American development associations in launching the African Initiative, which has committed itself to finding long-term solutions to end starvation on the African continent. In September 1987, Mr. King was a key figure in a joint Black Jewish tour of Israel, sponsored by the Anti-Defamation League. Shortly thereafter, Israel announced further reductions in its ties with South Africa. Mr. King has also served the King Center in many roles. For several years, Mr. King has helped lead voter registration drives throughout the country. In addition, he has promoted social change through his position as a board member of the Southern Christian Leadership Council. Mr. King received a degree in political science from Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia in 1979. In November of 1986, Mr. King was elected to the 7-member Fulton County Commission as an at-large representative, representing over 700,000 residents. Without further ado, and I've cut my remarks short because we're running late, it is with great pride, pleasure, and indeed it is my honor, my first honor, that I introduce to you Martin Luther King III.
Thank you very much, Representative LeBeau, to Mayor Neep, to all other elected officials, Superintendent Leon, to your principal, Principal Fallon, to once again the young persons of the Silver Lane Elementary School. I think we once again need to give you an ovation. I had an opportunity to speak with them before they performed. And also to Mrs. Arcari. But each of them played a very special role. And each of you in life has a very special role. You learned, if you did not know, a lot about Martin Luther King Jr. today. For he tried to teach us how to love and share and care for one another. I remember when I was your age, many of you, and I guess I was about 10 years old when my father was killed. And I remember how sad I Yes. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, the 3 R's. Those are the 3 R's that we must master. But many of us have mastered another 3 R's. And they are the R's of running and rapping and rhyming. How many of us can run? How many of us like to rap? And how many of us like to rhyme? Well, it's all right to learn those R's and master them. But the R's that create success are the R's, as this young man said, of reading and writing and arithmetic. You are a diverse group. Today, I think ages, 5th grade through 7th grade. Is that correct? Or 5th through 8th grade. And then some of your parents are here. And then many elected officials are here. And then members of the Patriots Commission. And so this is a diverse group of people. We are black, we are white, we are Native American, we are Latino American, we are Asian American, we are all of us. Maybe different in color or skin tone. But by and large, we are all God's children. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. tried to tell us. He tried to teach us what nonviolence meant and how to turn the other cheek. He tried to tell us that we must not go to war. And as we all know, right now in the Persian Gulf or the Middle East of our world, there is a conflict that is taking place. And we can only hope and pray that we don't go to war. Because maybe some of our brothers and maybe some of our sisters and maybe some of our friends are over there. But we must not, or we hope we don't have to go to war. Because war will create destruction. And in life, even here at school, war is violence. But we as individuals can be violent. For when we have a problem with one of our friends, many times we may try to resolve that problem by using violence. But violence is not the answer. Well, we have to use the mind that God gave us so that we can be creative, we can be constructive, we can think. We have to learn how to outthink those who profess to use violence, because violence would never work. Back in biblical days, many, many, many years ago, there used to be a philosophy that was called the philosophy of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Now, what that meant is if you did something wrong, then you would take something from someone. And if that philosophy was true today, many of us would not have eyes, nor would we have teeth. Because of an eye for an eye. If you do something to me, then I'm going to do something to you. That does not work. That only creates more problems. We have to learn those concepts of love, those concepts that develop that foundation. You see, if you build a house on a beach and you build that house with sand, when the rain and the storm and when waves come, what will happen to that house? What? a strong foundation is what you must develop. These years here at this school and all the schools of this community are so important. One thing about Martin Luther King Jr. was he learned how to read so well that when he got to 6th grade, he skipped 7th grade and went to 8th grade. He read so well that when he got to 11th grade, he skipped 12th grade and went on to Morehouse College. And so he never graduated in a formal ceremony until he got to college. Went to college at 15 years old because he worked hard. Just a few years older than some of you. Now, he didn't pass that on to me. I didn't skip like that. Genetics don't always work that way. I got some of the genes. I think I got the eating genes. My father loved to eat, and I'm a great eater. But they taught us all how to read. My older sister, as a matter of fact, skipped just 1 grade. But you can do that too. Martin Luther King Jr. became great because he first was a minister, a man of God. He happened to be a Christian, but had mutual respect for Muslims, had mutual respect for Jews, had mutual respect for all in our nation and in our world, because he understood that all of us cannot move forward, or none of us can move forward until all of us move forward. Yes, he first focused on the rights and privileges of black people, because black people did not have rights and privileges as we have today. We did not have the right, as you saw in the play, to ride on the front of the buses. And so a boycott was waged. We did not have the right to be citizens. And so in 1964, a bill called the Civil Rights Bill was passed. We did not have the right to vote. And so in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed. We did not have the right to live wherever we wanted to. So in 1968, fair housing legislation was passed. But yet, Martin King Jr. had a global vision. He was able to see and understand people who suffer throughout the world. He tried to say that we must lift each other up because we depend on one another. And I must say that when I was a child, just as you, as young people, I was disciplined. And I think that that is so appropriate. Sometimes today, many of us are not disciplined. And as a result, we don't have respect. We have no respect for our senior citizens. We have no respect for our middle-aged citizens. We have no respect for our parents because we have no respect for ourselves. You see, it's important for you to respect yourself, to love you so that you can love other selves. It's important for you to develop in that way. Because if you love you, it's so much easier to accept and love others. One of the greatest challenges of you as young people is going to be the eradication, or at least getting it in some form, what we're going to do basically with the drug problem. Everyone in here, at some point or another, has encountered the problem that exists throughout our community, drugs. And we have to learn to say what to drugs? No! Because drugs will kill you. When I was coming up, alcohol was a kind of drug that we kind of talked about a lot, and it's still out of proportion to some degree. But drugs are things that will destroy our whole nation and destroy our communities. We cannot move forward with a drug-infested nation. That's not the kind of America that we need to have. But we need to have an America where freedom and justice and equality is real for all mankind. We need to have an America that understands love. When you love you, you don't put drugs in your body. But when you do not like yourself, you're liable to do anything. Again, that goes back to when I was young. See, I guess I was about 5 or 6, 7 maybe. And I thought I was more intelligent than my mother. My mother used to be the one who whipped us. And she would tell us, and when you go outside, you can play in the front of the yard, but do not go next door. Next door was not that far. It may have been from here to this first set of doors here. But you know, I just always thought that my mother was busy. She looked busy. Dexter and I would go back to her room, and she was busy doing some work. And we'd go outside in the front of the yard, and our friends were always playing next door. And so we would kind of drift over. We'd look back at the house, drift over, and we'd get next door. You know, mothers have a special kind of connection with the children. If you go too far, there's a bell that goes off in their head. Bing, bing, bing. And so then my mother would come to the front door, and she'd tell us, come on. And we knew that we were getting ready to be spanked. Now, you see, my mother had a lot of influence back in those days, because she was able to influence us to go outside and get a switch to tear us up. I mean, that's like someone saying, okay, now, I want you to go outside and get a Magnum, and I want you to shoot you. But she was able to convince us to do that. And, you know, my mother, like a lot of mothers, didn't just whip us consistently. You know, you can give you a lick or two, maybe 3 licks, like, don't you do it. But see, my mother had rhythm in her whippings. You know, and you learn quickly not to talk back. You would not say, oh, okay, oh, ow, ow. Because the more you talked, the more licks you got. So you learn to zip up your mouth and take your licks so that, you know, it wouldn't become in rhythm. Don't you do it no more. I mean, that's sometimes what happens. But it was not abuse, it was discipline. There's a difference between abuse and discipline. Because the 4 of us were disciplined, today we are able to do what we do and be successful. All I'm saying to you, my friends, is that you can be successful too. We are not successful only when we choose not to be. My father captured it this way. He used to say that if it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, go on and sweep streets like Michelangelo carved marble. Go on and sweep streets like Beethoven composed music. Go on and sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Go on and sweep streets like Raphael painted pictures. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of the heavens and earth will have to say, by pausing, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. That basically means that no matter what you do the best. Be your best. That's what your challenge is, my friends. And so, as you go through high school, college, and graduate or professional school, always remember that you can achieve anything. You first have to set a goal. And that goal should be an admirable but high goal, a goal that is achievable. All goals start first with believing that you can achieve it. When believe it, you can achieve it. You cannot go around doubting yourself. Because there are too many things that we have to do and life is too short. So I would ask you, as I leave, I want to ask everyone, our time is short, as has been said, very, very short, unfortunately. I want to ask everyone to stand up, and I'm going to leave you with a chant. And I'm going to say these words, and then I want you to follow suit by repeating them. And the words are words that I borrowed from a friend of mine who happens to be the executive director of Operation Push, which is the organization that Reverend Jesse Jackson founded. And the words simply are, all across the nation. This is going to be a great generation. All across the nation. This is going to be a great generation. Okay, let's say it a little bit louder and more energy. Now, I know you all have been eating too much sugar. You know, sugar makes you like that. Now, I want to hear you all very well. All across the nation. This is going to be a great generation. One more time. All across the nation. This is going to be a great generation. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
We would like all the students to remain here, please. Commissioner King, we would like to present you with one of our t-shirts and one of our sweatshirts from East Hartford Middle School, as we do to all distinguished guests. We thank you for coming here today. We know that the spirit definitely continues on.